guess there's. Okay. Oh, now we're going to be jumping ahead. Okay. Go briefly over just what we're going to spend the noon hour here kind of discussing with folks and talking about this project. Just spend a moment or two doing some brief team introductions, background for sort of the project and the conceptual designs that are just beginning. And then we have sort of a short sort of group exercise with series of questions for everyone to answer. And then we're going to allow plenty of time for an open forum to kind of to field questions that folks might have about the project. And we'll close this out. And just as a sort of precursor, well, there's going to be some links that we're going to try to get to folks at the conclusion of our meeting today with some complimentary resources and sort of short surveys for you to do as well. All right, so let's move on. Project team introductions. So, pardon, there's a little bit of a delay here between clicking to the next slide and when it pops up. But I want to reintroduce myself. I'm Jay Dema with Perkins & Will. I'm a senior planner with the firm, and we're the consulting firm that's been engaged by the city to help sort of lead the process in developing these conceptual designs for some of these infrastructure projects just southeast of downtown. And then I'm going to ask my partner, John Slack, to introduce himself. John, you are on mute. Well, it seems like John's has some sort of.
Did that work?
That worked. There we go.
Sorry. Yeah, I muted myself again when we were waiting, and I had to ask for approval to be unmuted again. Sorry about that. Hi, everybody. My name is John Slack. I'm a principal at Perkins & Will, and my primary role on the project is to support Jay as part of the process, but then also I'm leading up the design of the infrastructure aspects with our large sub-consultant team. So we have multiple sub-consultants, environmental engineers, structural bridge engineers, roadway design engineers, to help kind of look at this bridge project as well as some of the other infrastructure components that you'll hear a little bit about along 6th Street as part of the project.
Great, thanks, John. All right, so moving forward, I think as part of the introductions, I guess before we get there, just as a reminder for folks regarding virtual meetings, as you've probably already are sort of putting up with here with us this afternoon, there's the inevitable technical difficulties that can sometimes arise with meetings of this nature. So we're just asking everyone to, recognize that we're kind of all in this together and be patient. Many of us are either not technically proficient or we just don't regularly do virtual meetings. And so some of us, we've become very much more accustomed to sort of the norms and the sort of the culture that's being built around virtual meetings. Some of us, not so much so. So we're just asking to be patient. There are a couple things to point out. There's if you have any questions, there's a chat box that you can click onto as part of the Zoom, and you can type those in, and we've got folks who are monitoring those, and we'll be able to answer those questions. As I said before, we do have a point. We'll have plenty of time this afternoon to field questions. So our presentation here shouldn't take very long. So if it's pressing, by all means, put it in there. And we'll get to it for sure. So, and then also just to alert folks, we do have some questions as part of the presentation to ask folks to get their feedback and responses. So we'll be doing some live polling, and fingers crossed, this is going to be a little pop-up box that everyone can click and answer questions to. But if that's not the case, we can always capture comments using the chat box. So, so with that, to kind of get us accustomed to this live polling, we have a couple real basic ones here. The first one is just to simply ask, do you live in one of these 4 following Rochester zip codes? Or if you don't live in those, just indicate other, so that it gives us a sense of where people, if they do live in Rochester, where they might be residing. The second question then that's related to that is check all that apply, which is basically asking, do you own a business or commercial property? Do you go to school in Rochester? Do you live in Rochester? Do you work in Rochester? So you can select one or none or all 4 of them. So we're just looking for some quick responses.
And Jay, we're having a couple more people just join us right now, so
Okay, great.
might want to, if the poll hopefully popped up for them.
Yeah, just if you just jumped on to the presentation, we've first pretty much thing that we're doing is we're asking all the attendees to indicate which zip code they might reside in if they live in the Rochester area or other. And then we're also asking a couple of the things about yourselves, whether you own a business or commercial property, whether you perhaps go to school or you live or work in Rochester. And you can click on that question number 2, you can click all of them if they apply, or only 1 or 2 or however many.
There is a question in the chat about the poll results and being shared. Are we able to do that right away?
We sure are. If we're ready, yep, I think we've got most people gone ahead and voted. So I'll end the poll and share the results.
Yeah, let's see the results.
So I don't know, Jay, do you see the results? Yeah.
I do see the results. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So so the looks like half of the attendees live in one of the 4 Rochester zip codes, and the other half live outside of the Rochester area. And then in terms of how to sort of describe ourselves, roughly a third of us own a business or commercial property, 40% live in Rochester, and then 80% of us work in Rochester. So, so yeah, thank you very much for taking the time to do that. All right. So moving on. Want to provide a little bit of background on the nature of these conceptual designs that are now being put together, and where I think the story best begins is with the City of Rochester's comprehensive plan, which was a couple-year process that ended up wrapping up about 3.5 years ago in 2018. And the comprehensive plan for the City of Rochester really looks at a variety of different important systems that influence the entire city, whether that's transportation, whether it's your wastewater, your stormwater, the demographic conditions of the city, and housing, and these other sort of big topics. And but one of the things it does pay attention to is, are there areas or places within the city that might be key redevelopment areas? And in the Rochester comprehensive plan, what we've noted here on the right side of this slide, the area that is, been referred to as downtown Waterfront Southeast was identified as a redevelopment opportunity area. It was noted at that time as a sort of a gray field, which is a fancy planning term to say that there are uses that are on that site that would probably need to be converted in some way, shape, or form. And so it really began with the comprehensive plan, just simply saying, we've identified this as a dot on a map, but it will be for future planning work to determine what might happen with that dot. And so that initiated in early 2020 the work on this area. That's the downtown Waterfront Southeast. And here we have an aerial. Downtown Rochester is on the top side of the map. Folks can see the Civic Center and the Government Center labeled. Dashed in yellow was this area that was a dot on that comprehensive plan map. But now we've, as part of this planning work, said let's more clearly define where this area is. It's bounded by 4th Street on the north, 3rd Avenue Southeast on the east, Broadway Avenue on the west, and 9.5 Street on the south. So it was this area that there was a commitment to creating a sort of small area plan to create a vision for the future. And it worked with a lot of different stakeholders over about a 6-month process. And labeled here within the district were some of the sort of gray field areas that were called out in the comprehensive plan, such as the former Kmart facility and what is now the former milk production facility that was known as AMPI. Those are significant pieces of land within the study area. And then, so then that was really kind of the genesis behind moving forward and trying to create a vision for this area. What the process about trying to determine that vision was really built around a number of different guiding principles that were both found in the comprehensive plan, and then were also key to the specific area, the downtown waterfront area. But those principles involved integrating land use and transportation, emphasizing sort of physical sustainability. So not this, allowing visions and plans to be unrealistic. Expanding the housing diversity. So not only within the area, because there's very limited amount of housing that's actually within this defined area, but really just housing diversity. It includes, the adjacent neighborhoods, the downtown neighborhoods, but also thinking about ways in which to bring more housing choice just to the entire Rochester region, and having this site be an opportunity to do that. There was another principles around enhancing the integrity of the existing neighborhoods. So recognizing that any future change that happens within this bounded area should have a positive impact and be beneficial to the adjacent neighborhoods. A big element that came out of the planning process that a lot of people mentioned was improving community connectivity. If you're familiar with this area, you know that there's very few roads, if any, that actually cut across the entire district, and that presents a lot of challenges for just the movement of people and or goods just through this area, especially since it is so close to downtown. And then just our overall sort of commitment to maintaining and enhancing our just community wealth and wellness and just the environment in general when thinking about new uses in this area in the future. So those are those key sort of principles that the whole process was sort of used to kind of guide thinking. And here what we've laid over on top of that previous slide is the results of all the planning work that was done. And so what you'll see in here is there are new streets, both north-south and east-west, that connect to the existing grid system of the street network in the city. So that's intended to enhance and really provide a lot more connectivity, both for motor vehicles, but then also pedestrians and bicyclists as well, and transit too. And you'll notice that there are green splotches throughout this whole area. So there was a lot of attention given to how we could introduce more green space and enhance that, both in terms of public green space through using the street boulevards and trees, but then also greenways and small pocket parks and so forth. There was even attention given to the potential to really promote and maybe support green roofs on some of the private development that happens in the area as well. And you can see some key elements here. There's green along the river, and that was one of the big things that came out of this whole process was how do we connect to the river, make this a really important amenity not only for this emerging neighborhood and nearby neighborhoods, but really for the entire Rochester region, that this could be something that would build upon all the work that's been done along building trails along the Zumbro River, but really making it a truly special place. And one of those strategies was taking and considering the existing rail line that is likely to become vacated in the future, because there's only one user left remaining using that rail line, and thinking and rethinking about that rail line to be, again, tying in with its connections to the river and just adding a lot of amenity and value to the community. So that's sort of, looking down upon sort of this area that's being planned. And of course, what folks will notice here is one of the key pieces is 6th Street Southeast being extended from the Slatterly Park neighborhood westward over the Zumbro River with a new bridge and connecting into the existing 6th Street Southwest. And so that was one of the key features that when this plan got adopted in the spring, and it was then transitioned from planning for the future to actually implementing that vision, the bridge and the new sort of 6th Street Southeast right-of-way that would be introduced and the roads leading to it really became sort of the priority. And so to focus a little bit more about this idea of implementing parts of the plan and thinking about 6th Street and the bridge and river access, we're also thinking about, that there would be a new right-of-way between Broadway and 3rd Avenue Southeast. But then there would be these impacts on adjacent neighborhoods as well. So we are looking at strategies around traffic mitigation on 6th Street Southeast in the Slatterly Park neighborhood. The ideas around traffic calming any new section of 6th Street and connections to the west, to the Discovery Walk along at 2nd Avenue Southwest, and how that's going to be a key amenity to connect into the downtown, and how can we take advantage of all that. So what exactly is this project? Just to sort of put it in simple terms, it's conceptual designs for a new bridge and access improvements to the bridge. And you can see those identified on the screen. And next slide should be popping up. So the question then is, we understand that there was a small area plan that was developed. These are parts of that plan. We're now trying to implement that plan, but specifically along sort of the 6th Street, this corridor we're looking at, sort of what is the purpose of the project. And in essence, we really want to think about providing safer multimodal east-west connection to the Zumbro River and downtown. There's also improving options and response times for first responders. There is the existing fire station. It's on the northwest corner of Broadway and 6th Street. And being able to improve those response times to neighborhoods to the south and east. There's also allowing access to parcels that can be redeveloped in the near term of the study area. There's the old AMPI facility and buildings, and those would have a very high potential for near-term redevelopment, and being able to access those parcels would be key. And then finally, there's just alignment with city policy of just creating a connected street network, and the fact that there's been historical planning and visions that have been created for the area that have called for sort of the extension and the connection of a 6th Street through this area via a bridge over the Zumbro River. So those are so the purpose behind the project. Some background here on, okay, so what's the process and what's the schedule for everything that we're doing right now? So we've described up here, the top half of this sort of schedule is between September and the end of 2021. And there's a couple different phases that we're going through. Right now, we're in this gathering community input phase. So that's really the point of this meeting today, is to kind of explain the project and gather initial reactions and thoughts and ideas about it. That's going to inform our next phases in the project, which is creating alternative concepts for a bridge and access to the bridge, and getting input on those. That would be a subsequent public meeting that we would have. And then taking all of that sort of feedback and refining that into a preferred concept, which again, our anticipation would be to come back to the public here a third time and review and perhaps refine the preferred concepts that are developed. Now the next, just to clarify, the decision, oh, sorry. Are you doing that, Jared, or is that me? Okay, you're shaking your head. If you could just back up one real quickly, I think that'll be important. So, as I was saying, the process for the conceptual designs that are happening right now, this is going to go through the end of 2021 into very early 2022. The purpose is, once we come up with these conceptual designs, is those are going to help create and apply for funding for the projects themselves. Once that funding can be secured, then we'll go into detailed design work that ends up happening. The work that we're doing right now is going to be primarily conceptual, but once there's funding for the project, then there'll be detailed design work, and then ultimately some sort of construction. Obviously, the timelines associated with getting funding are often, kind of elusive. So we've got a period of time here where we expect those subsequent phases to occur. Thanks, Joe. And so ultimately, in terms of, do these things, how far do they continue to advance in the process? I think it's clear to clarify the decision-making relationships, and that at the center of this is the Ramsey County, Rochester, City of Rochester City Council and the Destination Medical Centers Board. But built around that is input from the project management team, which is made up of various departments of the city. There's the key stakeholders, property owners, neighborhood associations, community groups. And then there's also a team of co-designers that have been formed that have been helped to kind of guide these conceptual designs. And I could talk a little bit about that group. Next slide. Yes, so a co-design team. This is a group of a diverse group of local stakeholders who are envisioned to be very highly engaged in the bridge design process. We are meeting with them approximately 6 times during this process, which will take us through the end of the year. And they're going to be going through even additional sort of iterations than we would be doing with the community or the broader public. And they're going to help us with design input and direction. They're also going to be liaisons to the social and cultural groups that they identify with, because the composition of the team is made up of a very broad cross-section of folks from different age groups, gender, different races, ethnicities, and physical abilities. So we're really looking at this team as being a great conduit to reaching out to groups that don't often have the ability or capability to participate in typical sort of public engagement, such as this afternoon's meeting. So there's another team here that's helping with the process. Great, thanks, Jared. All right, so that's gonna, by and large, conclude sort of our talk and presentation and introduction to the project. And so now we have a few more questions that we want to ask the attendees to get your feedback, to help sort of provide us with some input. And then once these questions conclude, then we're probably going to transition to just being able to gather more questions. So let's start with the pop-up polls, Jared. That'd be great. All right. So So I think we've got 4 of these questions here lined up. The first one is that focuses on bridges. So it's the idea that bridges serve many purposes. And we would like to know, which of the following do you feel is the most important purpose? Is it to facilitate commerce, connect neighborhoods to one another, allow traffic to flow better, will be a focal point or a landmark for the community, or something else? So it's the first one of these questions. The second question is, which of the following transportation types should have the highest priority when designing the bridge? So in your opinion, do you think the highest priority should be designing around motor vehicles? Should it be designing around pedestrians and bicycles? Should it be designing around transit, for example, city buses? Is there something else that's not on the list? Or perhaps you feel that all those types that have been listed should have equal priority?
And I will say for everyone's benefit that the questions should have popped up, and all 4 of these questions are grouped together, so you can move at your own speed. But I will ask Jay to take some time to read each one and try to talk about the difference and the purpose behind asking each question. So that said, maybe we'll move on to question 3.
Yeah, in question 3, we're asking, which one of the following words best represents your idea of a desirable image and character for the bridge? As I said, this is very early in the process, and we're still just gathering input on just what are the general sort of characteristics and other aspects that people think should be a part of a bridge. So we've just got a variety of different words. We want you to pick which one you think maybe perhaps fits the best. There's obviously no right or wrong here. This is just to help give the design team just some critical input and insight.
All right, and I'll move to the 4th question.
Yep, and then the 4th question that we have is, so I'm moving off of the idea of thinking about the bridge, and we want you now to think a little bit about the roads and the sidewalks and everything else that sort of leads up to and sort of feeds the bridge, if that's the right phrase to use. So what we're asking here is, thinking about these areas leading to the bridge, which of the following public realm / streetscape elements should be the highest priority? And we're going to ask, you can pick up to 3 options, but we do want you to think about, 3, and not, you might like all of them, but really what we want you to do is provide us some direction on, what really is kind of the priority from your perspective. So, is it seating and benches? Is it perhaps a river overlook? Is it access to the river itself? Public art? Public art should be a priority. Lighting, wayfinding and signage. There's the idea of accessible pathways and routes. Separation of modes, and when we say modes, we mean separation of like cars and bikes and pedestrians. Landscaping and street trees, and then the final option is the street crossings. So it's just again, thinking of these different things that sort of make up sort of the place and space as we come to the bridge, and what might be important.
Just waiting here to see if we have a few, 1 or 2 more people vote. I'll give it another 10 seconds before closing the poll. I'll go ahead and close the poll with that being said, and then Jay, hopefully you can see the results and walk us through kind of what we saw.
Yeah. So that first question about what the you feel is the most important purpose of a bridge. Looks like we had a split. I mean, we had 30% connect neighborhoods to one another, 30% allow traffic to flow better, 30% be a focal point or landmark for the community, and then we have 10% facilitating commerce. So so it looks like there's a lot of shared opinions or about what is the primary purpose of the bridge. And again, this is a question where at this point there are no right or wrong answers. If we had to design the bridge based on these these responses alone, we probably would be thinking of a lot of different potential strategies. So and then question 2, which is which of the transportation types would have a priority? So we have a majority here around pedestrians and bicycles having a priority over some of the other types of modes. And then we have roughly a third also indicating that all types should have equal priority. And then third here, the response, which of the following words best represents your desired image and character? And again, this was intentionally, not meant to, think that there's a right answer with this at all. It's just to see kind of the general reactions to, what those words sort of look and mean to people. And we have, traditional and sort of subdued. If we combine those, we're at 40% of the respondents. But then we had, another 60% looked at a little bit different in that the bridge should probably have something distinctive around it, whether that is, iconic, whether it's something that's just memorable, or maybe it has a contemporary design to really set it apart from maybe, other more older types of design. So yeah, really, really good feedback. And then the fourth question here was about these areas or different features associated with sort of the lead up to the bridge. And based on the work that was done with the small area plan and thinking about the Zumbro River, and a lot of emphasis given to really trying to create that and make that something much more than what it is today. This aligns with that. Here looking at the river outlook and access to the river, a lot of people indicated that as one of their 3 choices. But other people had pointed out elements around the lighting and being able to sort of separate the various modes, so that there's obviously some safety issues around how those rights of way might function, and again, the green bringing in landscaping and street trees, and really trying to leverage that, both from a beautification standpoint and also as that sort of wealth and environment and wellness standpoint. So. All right, so I think that, as I was explaining before, I think generally concludes sort of the presentation part of this and your sort of responding to questions. And so I think we'll look at, and some folks have already been typing some things into the chat box, and I'll probably start with these in order.
It's like Kathy has the first question about the right of way.
The right of way.
Yeah, so the question is, does city own right of way, or will it need to acquire it?
Okay, yeah.
And maybe Jared, if we can go back to one of the first couple of slides that shows the whole kind of extent of all the things that we're going to be looking at, that might be helpful in answering.
If you go one more slide, I think that pops up.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of these 2 slides is probably good.
So I think everyone's waiting to see who's going to answer this question, and I'll take Jarrett Hubbard, project manager for the city of Rochester. I'll take the shot at answering this question. The right of way, the existing 6th Street right of way, the piece from 3rd Avenue running west is in the city's ownership. But kind of where it enters, what many people, if you've driven on 6th Street, what enters the kind of the area that many people would consider the old Ampey, or the kind of that more manufacturing area, all the way to the river, the city does not own. With that being said, the city went ahead and roughly 30-40 years ago went through a process of trying to designate the right of way for future development and future work with the property owners to acquire the right of way. So I'll save you the name and save you the technicalities behind that, because it's a unique, special Minnesota privilege that the municipalities have in Minnesota to go ahead. It is not a direct taking. So the city would have to, even with that in place, the city would have to go through a formal purchasing process and acquire the right of way for this project.
All right, next question is from Brett. And the question is, how can you get on the co-design team? And we would like to have a representation from the We Bike Rochester.
Yeah, Brett, there's one of our partners on the project is a nonprofit organization based in Rochester called the Diversity Council. And their organization is really all about sort of the process of, building sort of equitable based sort of community engagement. And so they work with us to form the team, the co-design team. So I don't know if we're going to necessarily have room to add to the team at this point, but what I will say is that in addition to these series of public meetings, we are also sort of taking time to add sort of key stakeholders are out there and are sort of revealed and emerge. We will be, engaging other stakeholders as part of the process as well. So, recognizing, We Bike Rochester, and that, your group and House represented, I think, I think there's other ways now that we can certainly reach out and get to you besides simply the co-design team.
I will add to that, Brett, and this question or this response goes to Brett, but everybody as well that represents an organization or group that's on here on this call today. Please reach out to myself directly, or you can reach out to Jay as well, and we can make sure that we.
Third question is also from Brett.
Oh, so let me say, just say, reach out to us, and we'd love to come out and do a presentation to everyone's groups and provide the direct reach out, and we can even do kind of a mini workshop if the scenario and the platform allows it to have some more detailed conversations. Sorry, John, go ahead. You can ask the next question.
Nope, sorry about that. Thanks for jumping in and highlighting that. Brett had the third question, and it related specifically to poll number 2, and his question is about poll 2. Is that equality or equity? So I think is that in response to maybe option E?
Option E. Oh, should have equal or okay. Well, I guess that's a good question. Equal would probably imply that there would be like a geographic amount of space that might be equal, for example. But equity, that's good, because I thinking about a physical space like this and, what constitutes equity for these different modes. That's a really good question because I don't know if I have a really good response to it at the moment. I think the idea behind it was just that from a pure sort of prominence of space. I mean, I think we can probably all generally agree that most rights of way, as we know them, the sidewalk is much smaller than the vehicle right away. So from that standpoint, I think it's just thinking probably just more generally just equal. And I don't know if that ends up meaning equal amount of actual geographic space or just some other sense of equal like equity, like you were sort of suggesting.
Yeah, Cindy has her hand up, but real quick, Brett also typed just, I think, clarifications from his standpoint. He says that most bridges in Rochester are car first, not other modes, thus equity. And then many are squeeze points for peds, wheelchairs, strollers, bikes, etc.
So I just want to maybe build off, Jay, what you said, because I think if I don't want to speak for the team, but we're early in this, right? And so this is like at a very high level, just a litmus test of the people, again, I don't want to rephrase it, but think that there should be consideration for all three, or does one stand out? We clearly in this process, not only through the efforts of the team here, but through the co-design process, just like other projects, we have called out, okay, how do we make this equitable now when we think about the pedestrian piece? How do we make it equitable when we think about the transit piece? So I don't want to speak for you. And I think you started to go there, Jay. It's a very high level first blush. What's your reaction in terms of thinking about the functionality of designing the bridge? And is there space for all three of these to exist in some equal measure, and then a deeper dive into how do we make it equitable? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say from a project manager standpoint. And I would say that this is a tough question, and I think we need to put some thought around it as a project team, but also at the same time, Brett, again, reach out to me and let's have a conversation about how we do this, from your viewpoint and from your standpoint. I'd love to have this conversation, more in depth, I guess I should say. So.
Perfect. And then Brett also another response, like to see this address systemic issues with transportation equity. Okay, let's see. The next two questions are from Andy. Hi, Andy. Hope you're doing well. First one is there an opportunity to provide direct river access to the water adjacent to the new bridge? And then the second question is, how wide would the new right-of-way be? So, I mean, I can start at least on the first one. Yes, we are looking at providing access as part of any bridge options to the river. And we're looking at access on potentially both sides, so both the east and the west sides of the river as well. And I think potentially when we start to present bridge options, there'll be a range of different options to look at access to the water. And then subsequently, I think as we start to refine and move forward with preferred options, we'll include improved access to the river. And then the next one about the right-of-way. So that's I think that's a little bit more open-ended at this point. Based on our co-design meetings to this point and based on any input that we receive as part of public engagement and conversations with city departments.
I think we lost John there. Let me see if I can get him back.
Thanks. Sorry about that. Having a little bit of work done on my house. So the right-of-way for 6th Street as it approaches the bridge at either end likely will be pretty consistent with the remainder right-of-way, but that is something that we'll be looking at. the bridge options will define different options. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear me. Sorry.
Yep. We were kind of losing you. You started sounding like a robot there.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all right. I'll take over for a little bit here. Kathy asked, just popped in and asked a question: will there be traffic studies to determine the impact on existing streets, 6th Street right away? Yes, we're currently in the process of running a traffic modeling situation and trying to determine that. We did discuss briefly showing something today, but we're still very early in that process. So hopefully the next time we can get together as a large group, we can start to present some results. But yes, it is included.
All right. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you, John.
Okay. Yep. Sorry about that. Real quick, just on the right-of-way question. Depending on the bridge options that we look at, there could be some potential conversations about changing right-of-way widths in the bridge area. So it has to deal with access to all modes and the potential different bridge design options that we'll be looking at. So there'll be more to come on that in future meetings.
And then a question here came in from Brett about working with the U.S. Corps of Engineers on the bridge and design. And I would say we plan to reach on out to them, try to establish a conversation. But as anyone who has worked with the federal government would know, that sometimes things take some time. So we plan to reach on out to start this process, but much more energy and effort will have to go on as we enter the next stage, the early stages of preliminary design. Again, the purpose of this exercise was really to just get conceptually what does the bridge look like, what is the bridge capacity, what are the travel modes on the bridge, and what is the access to the river. And so we'll try to move forward from this point forward with those folks in the state government as well. Doris has had her hand raised for a little bit here, so I'll try to go ahead and allow Doris to unmute herself. So Doris, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. I have several questions. Has an environmental impact study been considered for this area, since we're working with a waterway and the impact that it could have? And my other question is, one of your guiding principles says to enhance the integrity of a neighborhood. My question is, if this bridge becomes a bridge for vehicles, how then do you justify this kind of traffic as enhancing the safety of a neighborhood, including the traffic past Riverside Elementary School and the entire area? The other thing is, I have a problem with a lot of vehicle traffic because we're a city of health and wellness encouragement. Our mayor suggests that we do more of that. And she also says that more traffic should not be directed to downtown. So if this becomes a vehicle bridge, how can you meet those responsibilities also? That's all.
Yep. Thank you, Doris. John, the first question about the environmental, I know we were kicking that question around with the design team a little bit. And do we have an early thought on that yet?
Yeah. So initially, just based on sort of the parameters of the study that we're doing, obviously doesn't require environmental any sort of assessment. A new bridge in this location, from our conversations with our bridge engineers who have sort of asked the conversation a little bit more broadly at a state level, doesn't sound like a bridge in this location would require an environmental review as well. The environmental review potentially would be required, most likely in the case of this project in this study, more related to development of the land as part of this larger redevelopment district. But at this point, that's our understanding.
But I will say, you know, again, we're only focusing on conceptual design. We're only starting to try to talk through what the design will look like, and if it's even possible through the traffic study that we are doing. So, you know, but we are taking small steps to try to address some of these issues. And if hopefully as we move through the process, we'll have some more information to answer that question. Anyone else remember additional questions that Doris had? The only question, Jay or John?
Well, I know at least from the standpoint of the broader scope of the work that we're working on, which includes looking at 6th Street, both east and west, we will be looking at modes of traffic on those sections, and we'll also be looking at traffic calming opportunities along those sections, essentially from the Discovery Walk on the east all the way over to I think the bridge, the Bear Creek Bridge, correct, on the west. So we're looking at that whole extent as part of this broader project, but more specifically right now, it's kind of just talking about the bridge as we finish up the traffic study and the analysis that should wrap up here very shortly. And then move into looking at the design opportunities along 6th Street.
And maybe John, you mentioned it, so I'm sorry if I'm just repeating what you just said. But as far as the impact to the neighborhoods, that is, you know, and reaching off on the DWSE area, that's part of the mitigation efforts that we'll be looking at through this process, and trying to figure out and work with you and the neighborhoods to figure out what will be acceptable. So I look forward to those further conversations.
Yeah. Looks like Brett had a couple of follow-up comments, encouraging us to have conversations with DNR early. Yeah, that's on our list as it relates to focus group conversations. And then he said, if there's a pier in the river, then obviously a core DNR permit would require some environmental review. And yes, that's likely too. We're at a point now where we're just conceptually looking at different options for bridge. So whether they're concrete span bridges that require piers, or whether it's some sort of structural bridge where it's more suspension based. So we're really early in the process of just conceptualizing some different ideas. And I think likely in the planning process, we'll be presenting probably 8 to 10 ideas to our co-design team in the short term, and then refining those. And that's at the point when I think we start to get into a little bit more detailed design, where we'll have to have these questions related to structural components of the bridge, and who are the right jurisdictional agencies to talk about the feasibility of building those types of bridges.
Okay. Give it a second here to see if anyone else wants to raise their hand and ask to ask a question, or if any more questions come on in. But we have hit the 1 o'clock hour. We understand that your time is short, and so we appreciate everyone's attendance. So I'll just I'll move back to the slide deck to make sure we run through all the slides here. So I think one element of the next steps is we have set up a Survey Monkey to go ahead and do an image preference survey to get everyone's and get the public's opinion on types of bridges and what they look like, and types of elements that might be included on the bridge. And I think Jay is in the process of, yep, there you go. You just put the link in the website or in the chat, so that you can go ahead and access that afterwards. We will say there is a lot of images, but remember, the important thing is do you like it, do you not like it, and just move on. Don't think too much about what's going on in the image. And hopefully if you try to keep it to your first instinct, you should be able to get it done in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I just want to add that you know, we had a few of these pop-up poll questions to gather some responses around. But you know, one of the other kind of nice strategies, because we're talking about conceptual designs, is examples of things. that are out there in the real world. And so, but to kind of go through that as part of the sort of format that we had today, I think would have felt a little laborious and tedious for most of us on the call. But if with a simple link to a survey site like this, and as Jared said, these are just images that flash up, and we ask you to, on a pretty simple scale, just rate, how you might react to them. If you spend 4 or 5 seconds per image, it wouldn't take you more than 3 or 4 minutes to go through them. So we hope that that's kind of another nice kind of interesting way for you to engage and kind of give us some kind of a feedback on what you think of in terms of different types of design types, whether it's about a bridge or whether it's about treatments for a sidewalk or different traffic calming devices, things like that. So.
All right. Jay, we, as the slide says, we are planning to do another one of these public meetings.
Yep, and I think we don't have the exact time as John had indicated one of his comments, that we want to come back with some concepts to the public to see. But I think the intent is to arrange something similar like today, that we have a noon meeting and then we have another meeting this evening, and we'll kind of do that again at some point a handful of weeks out when we have those concepts to review. So keep an eye out for announcements about dates and times, and as I said, the intention there would be that there's something more concrete for folks to be looking at and kind of weighing in on, which I think would be exciting. Looks like Doris. Doris, do you have another comment or question, or are you just?
Yep. I need to go ahead and unmute her here. So give me a second. All right, Doris, you should be able to.
Okay. Would you ever consider a site tour for the public to actually see the dynamics of this area?
I love the idea, Doris. I love the idea. Let's try to fold some dates together and let's try to offer something like that.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess that's the last slide, Jay, huh?
Yeah, that would be the last slide.
Okay. Well, I was trying to, there we go. We did create a web page that will have both the links to the public meetings, the Zoom links, and as well as the survey links. Looks like the survey links have not gotten on there yet, so hopefully we can get those today. I'll double check on making sure to get those on up there today, but we'll throw the web page on in the chat for everyone to see that as well. And that will probably be one of the best places to make sure and monitor over the next 3 months for information on the project. With that, we're well past 1 o'clock now, and so I'll thank everyone for their attendance and look forward to talking with everyone in the future about this project. And again, because we're in this virtual platform, it is kind of difficult to try to make sure that we reach and connect with everybody. So I highly encourage you to reach out to myself, and I'll go ahead and type my email in the chat box so everyone can have that. So reach out to me directly, and hopefully we can start to schedule some side meetings to work with your groups and your people of similar interest to work out some of your concerns around the 6th Street Bridge. With that, I'll say thank you once again, and have a good day. And reminder, we do have a session tonight at 6 o'clock, but it's the exact same material going through the exact same conversation. So if you've attended today, there's very little to no need to attend later tonight. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much, and have a good the rest of your day.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.